You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 280. Today is Sunday, September 21st, 2014, and my name is Steve. No Hammy tonight, but I'm joined by Curtis, and Kurt, let's do it. So in tonight's show, we'll discuss reports that Fredi Gonzalez will keep his job, a lack of harmony in the front office, and we'll rank the September collapses. But first, Kurt, as each week passes and each one competes for worst week of the season, I don't think this week can be beaten. As the Braves again went one for the week, showing they are really only able to beat AAA rosters at this point.
Barely.
Nationals, yeah, barely. Beating the Nationals that night after they clinched. And we were officially eliminated from the wild card chase today. And adding injury to insult, Hayward's thumb gets hit by a pitch. Minor left Saturday's game with after one inning with shoulder soreness. And for good measure, Evan Gattis even developed a kidney stone. So, Kurt, it's like insane how the play on the field has gotten so bad and the team is so unwatchable that going 1-5 this week is kind of not even news, nor is it surprising. But this all sort of led to a report today from Mark Bowman that Frank Wren's firing may be imminent, and that while assistant GM John Coppola will take over as interim GM, Dayton Moore, the GM of the Royals, who worked for Sherholtz in the Braves front office in the mid-2000s, is going to be considered as a replacement. So, Kurt, your thoughts on removing Wren now with a week to go and about the Dayton Moore talk?
Irrelevant with whether they fire Frank Wren. I don't think that has the impact as much as Fredi Gonzalez would on the team. Firing him now is firing him the second the season is over. As far as the Moore situation goes, it seems like the Braves are desperately trying to hold on to the magic that has long been since extinguished. Like that they are going to have John Schuerholz, Bobby Cox light in every capacity they possibly can, because that worked so well the first time, which it did. Of course, only resulting in one championship, but lots and lots of success, and that they figure that they will get Moore and Fredi, who are direct descendants of those two, to fill those positions, and that all will be right with the world again, which to me is incredibly narrow-minded and incredibly short-sighted, that lightning can strike twice and really funneling through the same channels. It's amazingly sad that they're so entrenched in their silo that they think that the only people that can successfully do anything in these positions are people that, and I mean, it makes sense, obviously, that you bring people along who are your that you've mentored, but God, cannot we move along and advance into the modern day and get away from the shadow of John Schuerholz and Bobby Cox?
The in-season firing of Wren, like you said, it makes little sense to me in terms of impact, and I agree. Like, if they fired Fredi tomorrow, that would be more impactful. I can't really argue with Wren taking the fall. The Dayton Moore thing, however, like you, I mean, it just makes my head want to explode. This will be his 8th full season as the Royals GM, and the first 6 were losing seasons. Now, it looks like, I was looking at a couple of rankings of the minor league camps across baseball, and the Royals are in the top 10 and a few things that I saw, but really, Dayton Moore and the losing Royals, it just makes little sense to me. And I hope that that's just conjecture on Bowman's part and is not really how it's going to play out. Why not Coppola?
Right.
He's supposed to be a real sabermetrics guy, which this baseball needs.
Yeah. I'm not a huge saber guy, but I that is clearly the way that baseball, that is the trend for baseball. And on the field, I mean, does that mean if they fire Freddie that we're going to hire Ned Yost to be our next manager? I mean, does it have to be so in this family that we can't get away from any of these same names being regurgitated back to us? And I just, you're watching and the reason that the Kansas City Royals farm system is so highly accredited is because they've been so terrible for so long that they've just monopolized the top 3 draft picks.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
To their credit, they stole our best scout, and he runs their department, and he's done a great job. Although a lot of these guys that we're supposed to be these breakthrough players have not really performed to that level for the Royals, I will say. But I mean, yeah, let's move on.
So Buster Olney on his podcast this week had Jerry Krasnick on, and they said a lot of stuff about the Braves. Of the most interest, I thought, was Buster saying he'd spoken to sources in the organization and that it would be more likely that Frank Wren would lose his job than Freddie would. So clearly we see the writing on the wall for Frank, but this is now another place we've seen Freddie doesn't lose his job. Bowman indicated that same thing in his article today. Do you think... I mean, what do you think about that Frank's gone, but Freddie stays?
I don't know that I have a... I mean, I think they should both be fired. I guess that's the point that I lie on. I don't see how what Freddie has done merits him keeping his job. And I suppose it's because he won 96 games last year. But this season of all seasons, if this does not get you fired as a manager... It certainly should get you fired as a GM, but if it does not get you fired as a manager, I don't know what does. And they're trying. I saw some where they were like, it might have been Dave O'Brien was talking about a comparison with that it might be just this one season blip because we saw 96 wins last year from this team, and we saw how bad Washington was or how average Washington was last year, and then they bounced back this year. Well, Washington had crazy injuries last year. They switched managers, by the way, and bounced back to challenge for the best record in the National League. So I don't know that that's an apt comparison. But I just, honest to God, if Freddie Gonzalez, and I think we all kind of agree, sadly, that this is where this was headed, but it will damage me as a Braves fan if Freddie is back in the dugout managing this team next year.
Yeah, I mean, I get that this organization loves their stability. There haven't been changes like this in 20 plus years. But why on earth not get a better manager? Like, his deficiencies and the gaps that he brings to this are clear, right? He's not a good in-game manager. He's not a good bullpen manager. And I get the managers get too much credit and too little blame, too much credit and too much blame, depending on things are good or bad. But we know that this guy has deficiencies. This is the time to do it. I just don't understand it, and I just hope that they're all wrong about it. I just hope they're wrong. So, Kurt, a quick death is not an option here. If only one has to go, Frank or Freddie, who do you choose? It's a tough one.
It really is.
Death is not an option all
It really
season.
is. I think I stick with Frank Wren. I wouldn't be happy about that, but there are some moves that Frank Wren has made that are that have been good moves, have been savvy moves. I mean, he is definitely a miner of guys off the scrap heap, which with the Braves payroll situation, something that's very important for them. And I just, like you just mentioned, I think Freddie is a bad manager. I think he is over his head, and 96 wins, regardless.
Despite him.
Yeah. I want Freddie gone. With all my passion as a Braves fan, I want Freddie Gonzalez fired and gone from this team.
Yeah, I'll acknowledge that I really just am crazed about Freddie being gone. I think that both these guys have support systems around them, but Freddie's doesn't seem to work in the middle of a game. Either, Tosca isn't listened to or doesn't speak up or what have you, whereas Frank's got, Sherholt and John Hart and Bobby Cox all around him, and maybe they need to step up some more. But if if one person had to go, I think it's Freddie, and you can make up for Frank around him. But again, none of that's going to happen, Kurt.
Yay.
Yeah. So, in in that same Buster Olney podcast, they mentioned that Bobby would like more of a role in the organization, which I'm assuming was news to your ears. Would you take Bobby as the new GM or as a manager for a year? Anything like that?
Maybe I'd take him as a manager for a year, a transition year. I mean, I've made no secret of my desire to move on from that whole era of baseball. I have lots of respect for Bobby Cox and tons of respect for what he did to rebuild this organization, to sustain the success that he had for so long. But I think he was limited in the way he approached the game. I think that the way he manages the game has kind of passed him by. The time has passed him by. And I mean, I guess I could live with him as an interim manager. But I want just a full flushing of this whole system.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Bobby over Freddie in a heartbeat.
Oh, sure.
As manager, of course.
If that's my option, yes.
Yeah. And, Bobby was a pretty successful GM and started that whole rebuilding for us in the late 80s and early 90s. Now it's 100 years later.
Yeah, or he just hired some really, really great scouts, which, of course, makes for a good GM. But they obviously signed some really talented kids back in the day that built the basis for that entire run through that decade.
Yep. So, Kurt, the last thing that they talked about on the podcast, which I'd never heard and was pretty disturbing, actually, was they spoke about that there's lots of discord within the organization, that there are like different camps. There are some guys in this camp, some guys in that camp, which also dovetails into an article from Bowman this week about losses that this organization has suffered. You mentioned some of them. There was a highly regarded scout, Dom Chidi, notable pitching guru, Dave Wallace. They almost lost Roger in the off season. The additions of John Hart, which was kind of always seemed weird to me with Frank in place and Sherholtz there. So what concerns you more about this and the team and going forward, the front office issues or the on-field issues?
I think it's got to be the front office stuff, because you work for any organization, any business, and it's certainly a trickle-down thing. And if there's all that discord at the top, and people wanted to bail ship on the Braves, which is supposed to be this very stable organization, the model organization that people want to come and work for. And you have guys like Dave Wallace, who, granted, he got more money to go and work for the Orioles, but really didn't want to get back into baseball, back into the dugout. He wanted to be kind of a front office guy, and these are really strong voices that you need as part of an organization. And we've seen how that their farm system, how depleted their farm system is, how lowly rated their farm system is. So losing top and really high quality scouts puts a huge hit on that too. So I think that is the worst place to have discord. I mean, obviously the translation onto the field is that you're making the decisions about personnel and all that kind of stuff, and who's the manager and everything else, and you're potentially letting your really high successful pitching coach walk on you. I mean, that's the stuff I'd never read like you, and I really was shocked and really disturbed to find all that information out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, if we were approaching 90 wins and had locked up the wild card, or were still in a battle with the Nats for the NL East, we wouldn't care so much about the front office issues. But you have to believe that it's all intertwined, that, this discord in the front office led to bad decisions, which have resulted in guys on the field that shouldn't be there. So I agree with you. It all starts at the top, right? But it's all so grossly exposed right now because the team is just so awful. So, Kurt, we're here in September, and we find ourselves in another horrendous collapse. So where do you rank this collapse with the others within the Freddie regime who will be back next year?
I thought it was so funny, that Calcaterra tweet.
Yeah, that Calcaterra thing was
when
great.
He was Googling 2011 Braves, and it was just auto-finishing collapse in every single one that he was trying to do.
I think he was searching Braves collapse, and it came
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
2011,
right.
2012, 2013.
Yes, exactly. Even better. I put this one at the top of the list, frankly. I know that the 2011 one was the most heartbreaking just because of the way it played out. But the injuries, the bullpen breakdown because of their overuse all season long, and not even necessarily Freddie's fault that year, but it just the team collapsed physically that season, and they just couldn't field a team that was capable at the time of meeting the demands of that stretch run. So many rookies that they had to rely on. This is like biblically bad.
Well, right. Like, because to me, the big difference between these two is in 2011, I was watching every night and every inning and expecting that they could win. Like, I've stopped expecting that this team could win at the beginning of this month and a little earlier, a little like the last week of August when all the wheels started to fall off, right? Like, this is a much worse team night to night, pitch to pitch than that 2011 team was. Yeah, and there's no reason for it.
Right, because they're all out there. I mean, obviously these last couple of days with Hayward going out, obviously we've missed Gaddis with the strep and now with the kidney stones and stuff like that. But I mean, we talked about it last week. This is for the most part, this has been this team and who is supposed to be out there for almost the entire season. I mean, granted the starting pitching, but we don't have to go over the fact that the starting pitching has been the by far the best part of this team all season long. So
the majors and quality starts. Isn't that insane? And our record.
Yeah, and Mark Bradley had something that he wrote about the other day where talking about the difference between the quality starts and the wins. So you have, I think it's 108 now, 109, somewhere in that, and you've got 76 wins. So all those wasted quality starts, 30-something quality starts that you lost.
Yeah.
And he put it up there. If you go 500 in those games, you're 3 games up in the division. So yeah, this team has been really brutal to watch. And the worst part about it is, like you said, that team in 2011, they just seemed overwhelmed. Like they
ran out of gas.
Yeah, and they seem so tight and everything else. I'm sorry. I know that they say that and I'm not suggesting that these men are not professionals and all that kind of stuff, but they sure do seem like they've quit. Their heads
are down,
and they hang very quick. I mean, you talk about that you don't have any feeling that they're coming back. Neither do they. Right. Their heads drop. It's 1-0, and they're out of it. I mean, they're done.
Well, did you see Irvin Santana's post game quotes today?
I did not. I saw you tweeted something about it, but I did not.
Yeah, I mean, he was like that. They asked, as the pitching staff, do you feel pressure about it? And he was like, yeah, you feel like you have to throw a complete game shutout to win. And also said, you give up 2 runs and you think the game's over. I mean, all the stuff that we've been saying for weeks, but it's pretty refreshing to hear him say it. But yeah, because there's just no chance with this team, just no chance.
Well, and the thing about it, he's right.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
It's true.
Yeah. We lost more. I'm sorry. Let me put that a different way. There was more at stake that got lost in 2011, right? We would have had home field for that 1-game playoff, all that stuff. Like we've always been fighting.
No, that was even before. That was the season before the 1-game playoff. So we would have been in.
Oh, really? Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we really lost out on much more. So in that regard, that collapse is worse, given what was sort of lost in the offing, but this team is just much worse this year. It's just a much worse team. All right. Staying on this topic, let's play a little fill in the blank, Kurt. As a manager, the one word that sums up Freddie is...
overwhelmed.
Mine was overmatched.
Nice.
Very nice. All right. As a GM, the one word that sums up Ren is...
fired.
Yeah. I had inconsistent. As an owner, the one word that sums up Terry McGurk is...
disengaged.
Yeah, I had invisible. It's really crazy. I mean, you look at our opinions about this, and I think that they're pretty common across the fan base. And that it just gets back to that they're going to keep Freddie. I just can't get past it.
Yeah, that's just, I'm not, I don't even know what I'm trying to apologize for, but the fact that Freddie has a better relationship with Bobby Cox than Frank Wren does, and that's going to be one of the determining factors on who gets fired and who doesn't, bothers me.
Well, that was certainly what they intimated in the Buster Olney interview. Hopefully it's just not true. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
I love Bobby and I love what he did for this team. But that's asinine. Because obviously he's going to have great loyalty towards Freddie Gonzalez. He brought him over and handed him the keys when he got fired from Florida, who, by the way, played much better the rest of that season after they fired Freddie Gonzalez. But it's a foregone conclusion, you know? I mean, of course he's going to have a better rapport with the guy.
Yep.
It's like his son. So, I mean, for that to have any weight in this decision is just... And maybe, like you said, hopefully that is not the case, but just even murmurs of that just give me the creeps.
All right, Kurt, let's play some Pepper, where I throw something out there and we just have our quick takes on it. So the Braves broke ground on the new stadium this week and announced that it would be called SunTrust Park. I heard people referring to it as the Trust on Twitter already.
The bank.
Yeah, exactly. So did that announcement, the new renderings that came out, which I have to say look pretty cool, that look to the future, did it make this season any less awful for you?
No. It does look like a prettier park than the original mock-ups that I had seen.
Yeah.
The more enclosed park. I kind of like that look better. I like that it's viewing downtown, even though downtown will kind of be a small speck in the very, very distant horizon. But no, it's honestly, to me, it's like salt in an already very open, oozing wound. So just a reminder that the Braves are moving to Cobb County.
Yeah, I mean, it did that for me too, and no, had no bearing on this. The mire that is this season, all that's going to get me out of it is firing Freddie, which won't happen. That and time. All right, so Monday night, the first game against the Mets, you remember it was the 6th or 7th inning. Both Freddie Freeman and Freddie Gonzalez got ejected. And
by the way, Freddie Gonzalez, lamest ejection in the history of baseball.
And about 2 months too late.
Right.
I mean, seriously. Okay, so there was a quote from Freddie Freeman about watching the game with Freddie after they were both ejected, and it was, quote, "We were just watching the game. I've never really heard him in the game like that. He was rooting for players. It was kind of cool to see. It's nice to see that he has our back." So, Kurt, isn't Freddie's supposed, greatest strength is that he's this awesome players manager? And his relationship with the players is one of sort of the key things he brings to this whole thing. I mean, so am I making too much of this? Like, I read Freddie's quote like this was news to him. It seemed really strange.
It is pretty crazy because everyone knew that Bobby Cox had their back because Bobby Cox got ejected every other game. And it was constantly fighting for his players. In the paper, he was constantly fighting for guys. And it's amazing that one of your seminal players, your leaders of your team,
your
is
longest
just
contract extension.
Right. Is just now, this revelation that came to him in game 1, whatever it is, 55, that... that their manager is supporting them. And how little communication does he have with his players? That's the question.
It seemed to intimate all of that. And maybe it was just sort of the way he said it and how it was phrased. But it really struck me like, how is this news? All right, a couple quick announcements, everyone. We have a new YouTube channel. So all of our shows are out there. And you can find it by going out to YouTube and searching Atlanta Baseball Talk. And once you get there, subscribe to the channel. We also have a new Facebook fan page. Go out there and like us. You can find it at facebook.com/Atlanta Baseball Talk. All right, so Kurt, time for Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. So first, let's check back on last week. Kurt, you predicted Hayward would go 285 1 homer, 3 stolen bases. So he hit 111, 1 for 9, and no homers or stolen bases. Of course, he missed the entire Mets series.
See, it was all going to happen in the Mets series.
Yeah, no, totally, dude. You're going to get bonus points for that.
Sweet.
Hammy predicted Freeman would go 350, 2 doubles, 6 RBI. He hit 150, no doubles, 2 RBI. And I predicted that Harang would go 7 innings pitched, 0 earned, and lose. He went 7 innings pitched, 2 earned, and lost. So, I win. I was the closest. So I lead the month with 2 wins.
Whoa!
Yeah. 1 for you, and Ham still has 0. All right, let's check in on our listener-submitted shots in the dark for the past week. They're both from Facebook. First, Alex Otwell predicted that Freddie Gonzalez would be fired after the Braves skid continues. Well, you predicted the Braves skid continuing quite well. Somehow Freddie is still at the helm.
And will be, unfortunately.
Yes. And then from Facebook, Jack Garcia, that the Falcons would score more points on Thursday night than the Braves would score runs all week. Now, as a side note, Hammy picked these this week. And, of course, even if the Falcons scored a touchdown and a field goal, they were likely going to score more points than the Braves all week. But okay,
at this point, and then they drop 56,
and then they drop 56 exactly. So 9 runs for the Braves this week, 2 shutouts in there, 56 for the Falcons. So Jack Garcia, good job.
He should have said they will score more runs or more points in that game than than the Braves have since the All-Star break.
Yeah, exactly. So we're asking for listener shots in the dark. We'll pick our favorite few. We'll track them during the week and discuss it on the show next week. You can submit them by Twitter or Facebook and use the hashtag ABTSITD. So please get those in before first pitch on Monday. All right, so Curtis, your shot in the dark for this week.
Braves, as a team, bat .218. They hit 2 homers. That'll do.
Wow, that would be a pretty good week for this team. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hammy sent his in. Hammy predicts the Braves average 4 runs per game this last week of the season.
He thinks it's a big bounce back now that they've been eliminated.
Exactly. And then mine is there's going to be a visible dugout argument this week.
Wow. Yeah. Who with? Are you willing to go even deeper? Or just
BJ and Chris Johnson.
Seems likely.
Yeah, the hothead and the person that everyone's got to be most angry at. We'll see. All right.
That could work either way on both of them.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so let's look at the week ahead. The final week of the season. 7 games, a 4-game homestand, the last 4 games at home this season with the Pirates, who are still fighting for the Central as well as staying in the wild card because they're 3. I think they're 3 games back still in the Central. So these are meaningful games for them. So I was going to do all the pitching matchup work and all that, and then I realized who cares? My God. So here are the announced Braves starters: Harang, Wood, Tehran, Minor for the Pirates series. Although I kind of doubt Minor's going to pitch, right? Don't you think it'll be Hale and then a bunch of, AAA guys?
Sure.
And then Santana, Harang, Wood. So we get 2 Harang starts and 2 Wood starts to end the season. So, Kurt, what do you think? It's really meaningless now. What do you think the Braves do in these final 7?
Well, Freddie Gonzalez talked a lot about that this 4-game series, that they could still play spoiler with the Pirates and that, they would treat this as their postseason and all this kind of stuff. So I'll be curious to see if the Braves actually do that. If they fight tooth and nail against the Pirates, if they, take some games in this series and put a dent in the Pirates' chances in the Central and all those type of things.
But they've been fighting tooth and nail all September.
Yes, you didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry.
That being said, I think they win 2 games this week. So that's 2 and 5. They win 1 against the Pirates and 1 against the Phillies and end below 500.
Yeah, so I really don't want the Braves to hit the 80-win mark because I feel like that will at least give the front office a little extra pause as they consider what to do with Freddie. I said this like a month ago, that they didn't get to 80 wins, that Freddie would be fired. So they'd have to go 4-3 to get to 80. So I think 3-4 is the best they're going to do this week, and they will be in the 70s. So
you're going 3-4?
I'm going 3-4.
Do you think they end up in third place in the NL East?
That's a great question. Do you know? I don't know how many.
We are a half game up on the Mets as we speak.
Do you know who the Mets play by any chance?
I do not.
Okay. Yeah, I don't either. No, I think the Mets will pass us. I mean, I think the Mets the Mets have some pretty good starting pitching and much better offense.
And the Marlins are only 2 games back of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to predict how that final series in Philly will go. 2 teams really just playing out the string. That's where I think maybe we get a couple wins. We may win 1 against the Pirates and 2 against the Phillies is my best guess. All right, Curtis, that is the show. Everyone, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as iTunes or Stitcher so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs and to post in our comments section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the